and sealed within the Pope's coffin. It was mentioned some of the countries that he has dedicated so much attention and care to, and I can't remember them all, but I know that one of them was Ukraine, another one was Palestine, Myanmar was mentioned, and it's true, these are all countries that when you think of Pope Francis and peace, you associate these countries to that. And
no, I'm saying we were talking about losing a voice for the forgotten. He was the only world leader who would never forget to mention ongoing conflicts that are completely out of the mainstream media. Myanmar, as you just mentioned, Sudan, so the difficulties in South Sudan,
Haiti,
yes.
And countless, the list is really, unfortunately there are so many that we don't talk about as much as we should.
Here we are in Piazza Venezia.
Piazza Venezia.
This is the altar to the fallen soldier.
And there are people all going all the way up the steps.
Big crowds there, big crowds. The larger area open there.
And now we're going to start going down what is personally one of my favorite places in Rome. It's the road that runs through the Roman Forum with Imperial Rome on both sides.
There we've seen a lot of construction. They're extending the subway line, hence all the construction equipment there.
But can I say Rome is becoming more and more beautiful as works are ongoing to bring out its best, and there's so much. It's layers and layers of history.
I was thinking of how much Pope Francis loved being among the crowds, and in a special way he's here with everyone turning out, and his spirit is present here in a way in greeting and blessing the crowds, I'm sure.
It's so lovely also that he wants to be, that he obviously feels Roman. He's Argentine, but he's Roman. He's the Bishop of Rome. He's said it so many times. And his devotion to the Salus Populi Romani is so significant as well.
Even his parish visits that he would make on occasion, he would go to the most remote parishes, the ones really on the outskirts of the city. The idea being to reach out to those who may have the least chance of seeing him or expecting to see him. That was his style.
And he'd go without a prepared text to engage in real conversation. I was speaking just yesterday or the day before yesterday to the international director of JRS, the Jesuit Refugee Service, and he was saying he'd pop into the Jesuit house in Rome and sit down and chat with them, and even about, like events that were coming up that had to be scheduled or had to be prepared. But he said he'd invariably come open to dialogue, open to listening to what others had to say. In fact, Brother Michael Scherf said he wanted to hear what other people had to say.
Seeing these stunning images as he heads towards the Colosseum. We've just gone through the Roman Forum there, and the crowds are thick on either side there. We're going to have some nice images of the Rome's ancient Colosseum coming up, where he wrote shortly before he died, the meditations for the Way of the Cross. The Way of the Cross on Good Friday, the Stations of the Cross are takes place there at the Colosseum in a very symbolic and suggestive way, in remembering Good Friday and those who've suffered and died.
He actually wrote the meditations himself this year. Very often they are written by groups of people, like symbolically, like by widows or war veterans or refugees. This year he wrote them, and he dedicated this year's meditations to the need for just economy, for the need to bring global justice to every person, every human being in the world, as we are called to recognize the inherent dignity of all.
Well, Pope Francis has often spoken of promoting an economy of peace and an economy of fratellanza, which is the word that inspires Fratelli Tutti. It means brotherhood. Um,
Yeah, fraternity.
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 Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. An economy of fraternity, and it is bringing together a lot of the things that we've spoken about. It's bringing together the poor and the marginalized and the people suffering on the other side of the world, in our case, us being here in the Vatican, who are suffering war, and often they're countries who are suffering economically, and it's calling to action and to responsibility the countries that can help.
Exactly. Denouncing the great divide that there is between the rich and the poor. How often has he said all the food that gets thrown away by affluent societies would be more than enough to feed the millions and millions of hungry people in the world. And here we have a view of the Colosseum as he goes up via La Bicana.
Now he proceeds on via La Bicana here, and we're getting closer to St. Mary Major. There's the main road that goes between the Cathedral of Rome, St. John Lateran, and Santa Maria Maggiore, St. Mary Major. He'll be coming up on that via Merulana there. And here, so we're probably about 2/3 of the way there, I would say. And again, Pope Francis wished to be buried at the Basilica of St. Mary Major, and he wished to be buried next to the Salus Populi Romani icon of Mary, who is remembered and venerated by Romans, as the Romans survived a plague centuries ago, and it's a special icon, a special place that people go to pray. And Pope Francis, throughout his pontificate, has gone there to pray, to give thanks, to ask for prayers for his ministry. So he's been very dedicated to Our Lady, and in particular this icon there in the Basilica. And he will be buried next to that chapel where the icon is located. He wished to be buried next to it and not inside it, where there was a possibility, saying, no, I wish that people, when they go to pay homage to that icon, that they see only that, and they don't go there to go see a pope. So for that reason, he wished to be buried next to it in a space that is just perfect and appropriate, a simple space where we'll be seeing shortly where it will happen.
We take it for granted that most popes are buried in the Vatican, and I think most of them are. I think there are about 90 popes in the Vatican grottos. But it's actually not uncommon for a pope to ask to be buried outside the grottos. But the last pope to be buried at St. Mary Major was Clement VI, who was laid to rest there in the 17th century. Other popes are buried in St. John Lateran, and even in places outside Rome.
In fact, Pope Francis has visited the Salus Populi Romani icon 126 times over the 12 years of his papacy.
He entrusted every journey to her, every single apostolic journey he went on. And I also remember a very poignant moment of his pontificate, which was during the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, two particularly strong moments from that pandemic, but one of them relating to the icon of Mary Salus Populi Romani. He visited the Basilica, and then he actually made a pilgrimage by foot to the church of San Marcello, which, if I'm not mistaken, there's a crucifix there which survived a fire in the 15th century. And that was a particularly poignant moment because there was this empty Rome, and Pope Francis was walking down Via del Corso, which, for those of you who don't know Rome, is the biggest, most important street, I'd say, of Rome, which leads from Piazza Venezia, which the Pope's funeral procession has just passed through now, up to Piazza del Popolo. And just these images of Pope Francis walking down this empty street, and obviously to bring his closeness once again to the people suffering all across the world. And there was another moment like that, which was the Statio Orbi, which I'm sure you both remember.
We do. We remember. I think you were in the square that night.
I was in the square.
One of the very few people.
Yes, because the radio where we work, has to be open every day and I was actually working that day, and I remember when the building was closing at the end of the day, it must have been about 5 o'clock. Pope Francis was just about to go out in the square, and Rome was empty in that case as well, and I made my way up Via della Conciliazione to the square, and I just remember it was raining.
He had that crucifix of San Marcello with him in the square.
Yes, he did. See, it all comes together. It seems like such a long time ago.
It really does.
And our television viewers here can see we're back in the sunshine there. We were just around the Via Merulana. We went through, it's a tree-lined avenue, very pretty. And again, crowds on either side. And as the street and sidewalk area opens up, more and more people are packed in there too.
Now I know they're going to close the images once he arrives in front of St. Mary Major. He will be carried into the Basilica, but it's going to be a private ceremony there. So we're actually seeing the Basilica right now.
He's almost there.
Is very
He's
close.
very close.
Yeah. Oh, here he comes
here.
now.
Here he is.
The images are being shown from the Basilica,
From the Basilica.
and he's arrived. I have to say, it's a very touching moment. It's almost difficult to know what to say.
I think most people can see and watch, but many people are also perhaps following on radio. Yes, it is very solemn. It's very sad.
At the same time, it's a celebration of his life and ministry, and it's particularly poignant in this Jubilee of Hope as well that he inaugurated, that he opened. And so I think, I would imagine that would be and of course it is the key theme as well that we celebrate in a very special way at Easter at this time, a time of hope, of birth, new life, life in a new and transformed way. And so I think all today has been a wonderful tribute to Pope Francis and his ministry. And there we see the icon Salus Populi Romani. It's a panel made of cedar wood. It's about 117 by 79 centimeters, more or less. It's quite large when you bring it down to the ground. It's mounted in the chapel there higher up, and it depicts a half figure of Our Lady with the child Jesus in her arms. And the icon again is especially dear to the Roman people and highly linked to the identity of Rome and the popes. And as we saw with Pope Francis, he had that special dedication to Our Lady in this icon of Rome.
He visited the Basilica just recently during his convalescence at Casa Santa Marta after he was discharged from the hospital on the 23rd of March. He actually, on his way back from the hospital, he stopped to pay tribute to Our Lady.
We see those arriving, some of the cardinals and prelates who are arriving here for this moment before the coffin is taken into the basilica for burial. This moment of that will take place here outside in front of the basilica.
The Cardinal Camerlengo, Kevin Farrell, will again preside inside the basilica at the final rite of interment. together, obviously, with other cardinals and prelates. The coffin has been set on a stand. I don't want to call it a catafalque because Pope Francis specifically asked that the whole rite be simplified, no catafalque. So it's on a stand, about to be carried inside this beautiful, beautiful basilica.
And if I'm not mistaken, just before his interment, the coffin will be placed for a few moments with the Pope facing the icon of Mary Salus Populi Romani, so that he can say his final goodbye to the Mary that to whom he has entrusted himself and the world to so many times.
Però possiamo andare là.
It truly is a simple coffin. It has a very simple cross engraved in it, a tiny coat of arms, and the seal of the Holy See.
I think it's being shown to the crowd, who, as you can hear, have applauded, and it's our final goodbye now.
Yep.
Before it's taken in procession into the basilica.
We hear the bells tolling. The Swiss Guards leading the procession.
Always present for the Pope's protection in every moment.
We're hearing the Sistine Chapel Choir there accompany us as the coffin is being brought in procession into the basilica, going through the atrium now and now into the basilica to be brought before the icon of the Salus Populi Romani, before being placed in the tomb that has been prepared. It's a simple tomb bearing only the inscription Franciscus and a reproduction of the late Pope's pectoral cross. There we're seeing the icon of Salus Populi Romani in the chapel that will be next to where Pope Francis will be laid to rest. There we see the coffin before the Pauline Chapel where the icon of Salus Populi Romani is found. And we have some children who are bringing a homage to the altar there, above which is the icon of Mary. Recalling the flowers Pope Francis would bring in homage when he would go there to pray before an apostolic journey or to give thanks or to for special prayers in his many visits there.
I think these must be roses that people have brought, because they were single roses, white roses on long stems, and people probably brought those to lay on his coffin or close to him.
I think there was a group of people holding them outside the basilica when the coffin was being brought up, and now he's
as you said, he is saluting Our Lady
and thanking her, I'm sure.
And now he's being taken close to the altar of St. Francis. The tomb is located just near there. And it will be taken to the niche of a side nave between, again, the Pauline Chapel and the altar of St. Francis. The private celebration is now underway in the Basilica, and as it is private at this moment, we're going to conclude our broadcast here, and we'd like to thank you all for joining us and all of us paying tribute to our dear Pope Francis. That is shown signing off here.
Yes, we do conclude this live broadcast here. Of course, please visit the Vatican News website, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube accounts for coverage of all of these events. Thank you so much, Thaddeus and Francesca, for bringing your witness and your voice. And thank you also to our technicians, our audio coordinator, and to all our media partners, TV and radio, who have made this broadcast possible, and to all of you for joining in. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be to Jesus Christ.